Hi, I'm the Other Prince, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite weapons and something I'm starting to reappreciate in Warhammer 40k, and that is the bolt gun. The bolt gun is a weapon that I think is honestly really underappreciated, especially in modern 40k, because when everyone gets into 40k, it's always one of the first things you hear, right? Like, I'm sure anyone who's first been introduced to 40k has always heard the whole statement about these are rifles that fire Red Bull cans. Those are ridiculous, right? It's one of the craziest things you hear. But in recent months, especially in recent years, honestly, I haven't heard anyone, be hyping up the bolt guns in forever. Everyone talks about plasma weapons, especially with the Dark Angels, those being one of their favorite weapons. Melta weapons and flamer weapons as well are obviously well loved by, the Salamanders community. I know I have a couple friends who love Salamanders for the flamer weapons especially. But, not a lot of people actually talk about bolt guns anymore. So I decided I would do them a little justice, just whatever. Fun little topic for today's video. And again, no script. So let's see how well I can do the bolt guns justice and see if I can convince you guys that despite the fact that they are extremely overhyped, they're also extremely underappreciated. So let's begin. The origin of the bolt gun begins before the Imperium itself, as it was stated to be a weapon that was actually using the Dark Age technology. Now, it hasn't been officially stated or confirmed, but it's heavily implied with the Knights of Caliban using them. If you guys have seen my recent Lion video, take a look at that one. It is a little long, so I understand it's a little bit of a rush for some people to watch. Regardless, so Knights of Caliban did use bolt guns, or at the very least a primitive form of bolt guns, thanks to their access to the STCs on Caliban. Though they were also used by the Thunder Warriors during the during the conquest of Old Earth. So that's because the Emperor had access to bolt gun technology. So the thing about bolt guns that I really enjoy, especially, is the relationship to the Thunder Warriors themselves. Because the thing about the Thunder Warriors is their name comes from the bolter. And the bolter itself, its name, comes from the sound that it makes. So if you guys don't know why a bolter is called a bolter or why a bolt gun has its name, it's because a bolt gun is a two-firing mechanism system. So you have the initial firing system from the gun. So, if anyone who knows how guns work, you guys kind of understand this. For those who don't know, you pull a trigger, it causes ignition, the bullet fires out based on the propulsion of the of you pulling the trigger. It causes the gunpowder inside to ignite, and it causes the bullet to fire. Bolt guns, however, have two systems. So what happens is that when the trigger is fired, the bullet does fire under the propulsion of the ignition. But once the bullet is flying, it actually has a second propulsion mechanism, which is an internal, basically, missile. Because bolt guns are missiles. So you fire the missile like you fire a bullet, and then it ignites itself and shoots at an incredibly high speed, making it fire itself twice. Now, this actually causes it to reach speeds so intense, they're considered to be hypersonic. Because if you guys haven't read the No Fear book, it's by far one of my favorite ones. I can't speak any it's top tier, one of my favorite books of all time. In that book, they straight up say that bolt guns are hypersonic. How Sigismund cut one in half, I'll never understand how he was able to do that, but, besides the point. Sigismund is just built different. But yeah, they say bolt guns go hypersonic speeds. Now, if you guys don't know what hypersonic means, that's 5 to 10 times the speed of sound, which is crazy. That means that's breaking the sound barrier 5 times, which is where the sound that a bolt gun makes comes from and where its name comes from. It sounds like thunder, which is where the Thunder Warriors got their name, because they were using bolt guns. So when they would enter battle, they would pull a trigger, and it would cause people to associate the Thunder Warriors, these giant super soldiers, these makeshift, Spartan 3s, basically coming onto the war zone, as basically encroaching thunder, because they would fire it to hear thunder, and then people just explode. Because again, these are missiles. So when they impact, the bit is designed to penetrate itself into your body, after which point a late-stage detonation goes off, and it causes it to explode inside you. Now, if you guys have read The Last Church, again, one of my, by far, top 5 favorite Warhammer books of all time. Maybe I'll do a ranking at some point if you guys really want it. But in that book, what's his name? The priest Uriah, I believe his name is. If I'm wrong, someone correct me in the comments below. But he mentions how when he was fighting against the Thunder Warriors for the first time, he's seen a charging of soldiers going up against them, and within just a crack of thunder, every single one in the front line exploded, because again, it was so horrifying. And that's where the fun thing about the bolt guns comes into play, and the Thunder Warriors themselves. Because these aren't good weapons. Let's be completely honest with you guys. Yeah, they are very powerful, very strong, very deadly weapons. But the thing about bolt guns is they aren't optimal. what a bolt gun is a terror weapon because it's very loud. And when it impacts you, yes, it kills you. It's great for killing individuals or infantry targets. But the explosion, yeah, that might kill a couple people if you can get the shrapnel of bones and everything else to kill people. But that also causes groups to scatter. That's what bolt guns do. That's what they did when Uriah and his army were attacking the Thunderwars. After the first volley, they scattered and ran away. And after that, they stopped firing. Why? Because they weren't efficient at killing scattering, fleeing targets. Because the whole point of them was to kill large groups of unarmored, unmodified humans. They are terror weapons. It's amazing. Well, it's not amazing. Terrorism is awful, obviously, but it's really fun that the bolt gun, a weapon that everyone, praises super highly as one of the most deadly, one of the most powerful things in 40k, and its design and its purpose isn't to really kill. It's designed to scare and frighten large groups. Just like how the Emperor, his whole goal was to oppress humanity, the main weapon his soldiers use is a weapon of oppression, of imposing fear and tyranny. It's really fun. Of course, the Emperor is a tyrant. Love you, Dad. And then, on top of that, the Thunder Warriors also had a second weapon in their infantry weapons, and that weapon was the chainsword. Now, what is a chainsword? It's a sword that's also a chainsaw, if it wasn't obvious enough. Now, imagine an 8-foot-tall superhuman running at you, covered in, Baroque kind of brass armor, and then he has in his hand a chainsaw sword, a sword that's probably the length of probably one of the largest swords that humans ever, like a bastard sword. Imagine a bastard sword, but the blade is a chainsaw, and this guy's running at you. Yeah, you are going to be frightened. You're going to be scared. Again, the whole purpose of the bolt gun, of the Thunder Warriors themselves, wasn't to be efficient warriors. They're meant to be fast, rapid, and very, very scary. And I think that's why the Emperor eventually removed them to create the Astartes. But I mean, that's a topic for another video because, depending on who you ask, the Thunder Warriors were superior to the Astartes to begin with. Regardless, so that's one of the first uses of the bolt gun. But they're also being used by the Custodes, who got, obviously, better versions of the bolt gun, which is, whatever. The Custodes get whatever they want. Their dad's favorite. Whatever. Not jealous. And so, on top of that, though, the bolt gun would eventually become the standard issue weapon for the Space Marines when they were created. And again, on different planets, they did have access to variants or prototype versions of the bolt gun. So again, it wasn't an uncommon weapon, but it was definitely the Emperor's industrialization and mass marketing and development of it as a weapon of war that made it so popular and wide use during the Great Crusade, on top of the fact that it was being used every single time. But the fun thing about the bolt gun is that while there is a Terran version of the bolt gun, which is basically not the standard, it was a standard at the beginning of the Great Crusade during the conquest of the Sol system, it was eventually phased out with the far more superior and better designed Mars pattern bolt gun. Now, for those who don't know what a pattern is, I should say, imagine patterns like brands, in Canada we have No Name, in America, everywhere else you guys have Walmart, whatever. But basically imagine these we'll say orange juice, right? So you have the orange juice that you would buy from, one company, and then you have an orange juice that you get from another company. They are still orange juice, but they are created by different companies and have different ingredients placed in them. Some of them have greater consistency, some of them have pulp, which is wrong. If you put pulp in your orange juice, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can talk to you right now. And yeah, they have different ingredients. Same thing with the bolt guns. So different patterns of bolt guns come from different Forge worlds. While multiple Forge worlds do share the same pattern, it is uncommon for one Forge world to say have access to better metals, and so their pattern of bolt gun is just mildly superior. That would become a different pattern of bolt gun, even if everything is the same, but the material that's used to create it is just different or often a different way. That would quantify it as a different pattern. And the thing is that as the Great Crusade expanded through the galaxy and encountered more and more of these Forge worlds, not only were they able to get access to their patterns of weaponry, be the pattern of chainsword, be the pattern of armor, Mark II, Mark III, Mark IV, or it could just be the weapons they were using, or because they were able to bring access of Forge worlds from, they've previously conquered to ones that they've just recently explored, they'd actually have some diversity between them and actually be able to improve on the overall pattern. So, for example, when the Emperor arrived on Mars, he brought with him the Terran pattern of bolt gun. This Terran pattern bolt gun would then be introduced in Mechanicus on Mars, who would improve it and make it significantly better and more easy to produce, which is where we get the Mars pattern bolt gun. However, during the Great Crusade, as it expanded onwards, we eventually got the Phobos pattern, which I believe is from the Mars moon of Phobos, and I think it's supposed to be stealthy. That I know the armor is stealthy, but I know there's something about the Phobos pattern bolt gun that makes it somewhat stealthier. And then you have the Umbra pattern, which is my personal favorite. I don't know, there's just something about its design that just appeals to me. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. But yeah, I think the bolt gun is a really fun concept, and then that's not even counting the combi weapons that got developed based on the bolt gun. But yeah, I think the bolt gun. I think my favorite combi version of the bolt gun, though, if I had to really put it off the top of my head, is a combi plasma because I'm a Dark Angels player through and through, and I love my plasma weapons. So I'm not gonna get upset if someone makes a bolter and a plasma weapon and hands it to me. I'm taking it. I'm sorry, even if Azrael's gun is a little fucking stupid. Anyone who's seen Azrael's gun, you guys know the horrible design flaws with that thing. That thing looks disgusting. But side tangent. I'm sorry if I have so many tangents. So, although, you know what? Speaking of tangents, can we go over the mechanicus' designing of the bolt gun? Because, like, you have the bolt gun, terror weapon, kind of efficient. But, there was one delusional, probably, you know what? It's probably Arkan Land. It's probably the fucking maniac that was Arkan Land who seen the bolt gun and was like, you know what? That's a cool gun. Let's tape two of them together. So that's where the combi bolter comes in. It's literally two bolters stuck together. I even have a couple kit bashes on my shelf of literally just me taking two bolt guns, so filing down the sides, gluing them, sitting them together, and giving them to a Space Marine for a combi weapon. I have right here. Here, I'll just hand over one of my guys. Right here. So this guy, he has a combi bolter, which is literally just a bolter that I stuck together. So yeah. If you guys want to see some of my Space Marines, let me know. It's really fun. I like creating them. So yeah, that's where the combi bolter came in, and over time they started attaching more weapons to it. But then you have the crazy, one of the reasons why I think Arkan Land made the combi bolter is because if you guys are familiar with the Land Raider, one of the equipments or one of the weapons that can be attached to it is the fucking Hurricane bolter. What's a Hurricane bolter? Well, you have a bolter, right? Combi bolter is two of them. Hurricane bolter, you might think, oh, that's got to be four of them, right? Obviously, that's four. No, you delusional maniac. A hurricane bolter is 8 bolters stacked on top of each other in a row of 4 by 2. And there's 2 of these things, 2 hurricane bolters on both sides of the Land Raider as it's flying at you at, what is a Land Raider's movement speed, like 10? Movement speed, it's like 10 or 12. So it's moving twice as fast as a Space Marine, coming at you, firing off 16 shots from its 16 bolter shots, right? I'm sorry, you are going to die. And not only that, but bolters are I believe bolters are burst fire. I believe they have an option for all 3 fire modes. So single shot, so one shot, one fire. Burst fire, which is pull a trigger and multiple rounds come out, and then full auto, which is pull a trigger, doesn't stop shooting. If you guys are familiar with if you guys are familiar with Call of Duty, these are your basic concepts. So I believe they have a mode for all 3 they have bolters have all 3 firing options, but I just think it's 16 bolters that are firing burst fire at you. So it isn't 16 shots. It's probably closer to 20 to 32 or 40 something. So you're gonna die. And I think that's something they really did a good job with the rules, actually speaking. Because I think, if I remember correctly, bolters have rapid fire, and then as you go up, they get more and more rapid fire, and they also get, I think one of them is anti-infantry, or maybe combi weapons. All combi weapons have anti-infantry regardless, so it does do justice to the fact that bolters are anti-infantry weapons. Now, is there anything else when you talk about the bolter? Well, I don't really think so. Minus one of my favorite weapons, which is Horus' Claw. So if you guys don't know, Horus, Primarch, older brother, he sucks, he turned evil. He has a Thunder Claw. So imagine Wolverine claws, or not Wolverine claws. Imagine Sabretooth claws, right? But each one of these claws is electrified. So they're taser claws. But on top of them being taser claws, they also have an energy field that disrupts matter. So when these things slice through you, nothing is stopping them. They're cutting right fucking through you, right? So that's dangerous. Now, imagine if another similar maniac to Arkan Land then took a combi bolter, so again, 2 bolters side by side, and put it as an underslung to the claw. So again, let's put them together, okay? Imagine 10 Horus was 10 feet tall, right? He was 10 feet tall. You know, maybe he was just really short. You know, everyone talks about him being bald being the reason he was evil, but has anyone ever asked if Horus was a short brother? Like, we all know Malferus is a short king, but like, he does a short king's justice. Maybe Horus was bald, but maybe it was his shortness that everyone was angry at. Maybe that's why he turned evil. No, I think Angron was actually shorter than him. Regardless, so imagine Horus, right? Stabbing into someone, which he does do, and then firing off the combi weapon, the combi bolter, into your chest, which he does do against the orc that he faced that was going to kill the Emperor. Like when, for those who don't know, Horus and the Emperor teamed up to fight an orc. The orc war boss almost killed the Emperor. If you guys know the Emperor, you know he was probably faking it. But the orc war boss almost kills the Emperor. Horus saves him by stabbing the orc into its stomach, like literally just inside its guts, and firing off the bolter, killing it, right? So it dies. And that's awesome, right? So, I mean, combi bolter claw combination is a pretty strong one, so I'm not going to diss Horus for choosing that. But, let's see what else we have to discuss the bolter. Let me see, off the top of my head. They got updated. Well, depending on who you ask, they might have gotten ruined. Because there's a whole controversy about the Primaris Marines, right? I personally will have a video talking about them, and why GW might have done the right, like, why the Primaris Marines were good, or at least an unpopular opinion. I kind of like the Primaris Marines from a conceptual standpoint. Video for later. But the bolt gun got upgraded by Belisarius Cawl, who... he's a retcon machine. Him, I don't like. There's things about Belisarius Cawl that I don't like. There's things about the Primaris Marines I do like. But again, those two will save for a later video. The topic about the bolter, though, is that this was upgraded to the bolt rifle. The bolt rifle has just better stats overall, even if the game doesn't actually do those justice. Basically, just more advanced, better fire rate, better ammunition types. It's just a weapon, but made better. That's really all it is. And these new bolt rifles are called the Cawl pattern bolt rifle. Because Cawl has to patent everything with his own name, because, I mean, why not, right? Who am I to talk about patents? I call everything fucking Everprince anyway. So, Cawl created the Cawl pattern bolt pistol, heavy bolt pistol, because there's a difference between a bolt pistol and a heavy bolt pistol that genuinely isn't. If I can remember off the top of my head, I think the Lexicanum literally just says that it's like 1 or 2 calibers bigger. Which is like, yeah, okay, that's good. It's a bigger caliber bullet. That can, but it's still a bolter. Its purpose is just to get inside someone and explode. Phrasing. So, I mean, it's a bolter round, right? It doesn't have to be bigger. Oh, well, I mean, the Imperium does like to make things bigger, and one of their biggest things, or at least one of their biggest versions of the bolter, is the heavy bolter, which is just bolter, but bigger. Fires bigger rounds, fires faster, does more damage. It's a very efficient weapon, and I believe before Volkite weapons were going to become the standard for Space Marines, there was, basically the intention was to make heavy bolters the standard. Because while bolters are efficient, heavy bolters are just bigger. They do more damage, they do 2 damage in tabletop, so a single one of those, like a single shot from a heavy bolter is going to kill a Space Marine, right? Depending on who you ask. So, like, they were going to make the heavy bolter the standard before the Volkite weapons became so efficient, and Horus Heresy rolled around, Volkites fell out of favor. Heavy bolters were still used, but because of how heavy they were and how much effort it took to mass produce them, they were also kind of slide down a little bit, whereas the bolter, because there was already so many of them in production and in use, those things just kind of skyrocketed and became even more, basically they went from like, you know, a common weapon that every basic legionary uses to something that everyone uses outside of special scenarios or special characters or special ranks. So that's how common bolters became. Like, yeah, again, they were common beforehand, but they skyrocketed afterwards. But yeah, and then the bolt gun was also later adopted by the Sisters of Battle, who make excellent use of them when they're hunting down heretics and people who disagree with them. So, I mean, that's a good thing. And why they don't make bolt guns for the standard infantry for, you know, say the Imperial Guard is a number of reasons. Because depending on who you ask, and depending on who's writing the story, bolt guns either have no recoil or all the fucking recoil in the world. Because in some Sisters of Battle books, it's been said that as a sister is firing the gun, she feels no recoil. And then you have other instances of people firing a bolt gun and their arm just getting obliterated, like their arm is literally just shot off, right? It goes in the other direction. So this has led people to kind of not be sure on what it is. I personally prefer the idea that bolt guns do have recoil, just because a gun, like the gun is two firing, right? So there has to be a kick when you fire the initial shot, but it's the second shot, the propulsion system in the bullet going off, that doesn't have recoil. At least that's what I view it as. And again, GW likes to say that bolt rounds are, I believe they're caseless, which is wrong, because according to Astartes, I'll try to get some images of Astartes and some bolt gun action in use during this video, so it's not just me talking to the screen. But we see that the Astartes, when they're firing onto those mechanical soldiers in the scene, that they do have cases, that the casings are being ejected out of the side of the bolter. And because of GW's recent acquisition of the Astartes project, that does make Astartes as a project canon to the 40k setting, meaning bolt guns do in fact have casings. This was a whole roundabout way of saying bolt guns do have casings. And I'm sorry, but if I have to deal with that mental load, now so do you. And so, yes, there's a lot of contradiction about bolt guns, but again, 40k is a series that's been going on for 40 years at this point. So, retcons and contradictions, and, even how the basic mechanics of the weapons work isn't going to be consistent across all those years. It would be amazing if it was. I'm just saying, GW would make everyone's job a lot easier. But what can you do, right? So, yeah. Otherwise, I've got nothing else left for bolters. I think you guys have a basic understanding of it, and if you guys want more knowledge on bolters, I suggest reading some books, specifically the No Fear one. I mentioned this earlier, but it is a phenomenal book. One of my favorite scenes in the book is actually, I believe, chapter 3 or 4. I don't have the book on me right now. It's on my bookshelf, and I am way too lazy to go get it. It's literally just down the hall to my right, to my left. And yeah, in the book, one of my favorite scenes is when the Word Bearers and the Ultramarines meet each other. If you guys don't know the Horus Heresy, the Ultramarines and Word Bearers used to be... They weren't friends. They weren't friends, but they were co-workers. At any rate, an Ultramarine sees a Word Bearer walk into his ship, and his first instinct is, I could kill this guy in 2 seconds. Which, I mean... Slay Queen. The idea is that he sees how to kill a Space Marine, and that is to fire one bolt at the helmet to break the visor and break the first structure, and then the second bolt to actually penetrate the face and kill them. This is where Space Marines have the 2 wounds from. If you guys like, GW likes to try and make the rules consistent. They don't do a very good job. You guys know this already. I've already mentioned this a couple minutes ago. But I liked, when I read that scene, for me, it made sense why Space Marines had 2 wounds, because you have to penetrate the armor, which I know there's a saving throw for the armor. But, like, honestly, wounds representing armor makes more sense to me, just because, like, I don't know, I play D&D a lot more often, so it makes sense to me more consistently. Then again, my homebrew rules have armor adding health, so I mean, who am I to fucking talk, right? So that's the concept of why I think Space Marines having 2 wounds makes sense. But yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes. Like, Ultramarine sees Word Bearer walk in, I kill this guy in 2 shots. 2 to the face. And it's just like, okay. I mean, yeah, that's the obvious answer. Shoot them in the face. But thank you for telling me it takes 2 rounds to penetrate Space Marine armor. And speaking of, because that scene made it possible for me to, quantify how many shots it takes to pierce Space Marine armor, and I have autism, I actually was doing some math in the back of my head on how to do, how potent Space Marine armor actually is, and if there was anything on Earth that could actually pierce it. And if it's been, months into the calculation, so I'm sorry, but you'd be surprised how much stuff we have on Earth, like even today. Like, I think a type of LMG round could realistically and consistently pierce Space Marine armor. Like, not to the point that it would, like, destroy, like, it would shred it like paper or whatever, but a couple of rounds would be able to do quite a bit of damage and pierce Space Marine armor. But, I mean, this video isn't about the armor, it's about bolt guns, so, I mean, what do you, like, So, but, I mean, I think I'm probably running out of stuff to discuss when it comes to the bolt gun. So if you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to let me know that in the comments below, and I'm going to fully try and get this video out in a single day of editing. It is the 25th today, so maybe let me know in the comments below how long I lasted, and maybe I took 2 days and it took 2 weeks to edit this video. Hopefully not, though. And if you guys like what I'm doing, maybe subscribe to my Patreon. I want to try and get that stuff rolling, get income from it, do this more consistently, more often, and oh, don't forget to like and subscribe. But overall, I've got nothing else to say. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Bye.